This conference will now be recorded.
So, Rick Davis here. This is the 1st of August, and this is our Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern start meeting. A word from the sponsors. That's right now Bayer and Pfizer, soon to add Janssen and FMI, and I don't know who else, a couple of others. So we always say thank you to them. We record this meeting, A, because some people like to go back and listen to it again, because they didn't catch everything the first time. And B, because we have a lot of people, somewhere between 80 and 100 people each week who listen to the recording. Some are people who are here, and others are people that cannot attend, but you can always listen to the recording as an alternative. So again, welcome to Dr. Jack Baruch, who lives down in Key Biscayne, where I was fortunate enough to be back in March with David Muslin. When I went to visit him to twist his arm to join our board, for which we are very, very, very grateful. And I had a great fish meal in Key Biscayne. And I would go back to Key Biscayne for the fish meal. Just saying. So if I come down your way, Dr. Jack, I know where we're going.
That would be great.
Dr. Jack, why don't you please introduce yourself? We have another gentleman on the line, one of our moderators, who has the very similar background to yours in the same specialty. And so he'd be interested to hear that part of your background. And we'd love to see if we can give you some solid advice to help you to navigate you right now. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Bear with me, we'll get through it pretty quickly, and then we'll spend some time with you. I believe you're 82, is that right?
83 in 11 days.
Well, you could have fooled me.
Sure.
You live in Key Biscayne, right?
Correct.
And for the benefit of Dr. John, this gentleman has the same board qualification as you, and at one point worked at the National Institute of Mental Health.
So did I.
So I don't know if you've ever run across each other, but you might have done. Who knows?
I was
both academics.
1969 to 1973, I was at NIMH. I lived and practiced in Washington for 35 years.
Okay. And you were, was it Georgetown you taught?
I taught at Georgetown, correct.
Okay, and Dr. John taught at Connecticut. So we have some similarities there. What year were you diagnosed?
Okay, so I was diagnosed in February. I had the biopsy T1C non-palpable February 11, 2003. I had a 3+4 Gleason. 3+4 Gleason, PSA 3.9. I had surgery April 15th, 2003 radical by Peter Scardino. Post-surgical diagnosis was T2B. I was clear for almost 15 years, non-detectable. First showed up October 30th, 2017, 0.06. Scardino followed me. At the same time, I had a lingual gingival lesion in my mouth, symptomatically treated with augmentin. I always wondered about that because I developed symptoms bilaterally in both of my parotids that caused me to have a lot of inflammation and pain that I've had up until this moment. I always felt the PSA rise correlated with that, but I thought maybe that's possible. Maybe it's also denial. On January 22nd, 2018, with my PSA at 0.13, being followed by Scardino, he decided to retire and sent me off to see Daniel Danila at Sloan Kettering, who's been following me since detectability almost 5 years ago. In 2000,
so let me stop you right there. How are you doing with Danilo?
What does that mean?
How are you happy with him as your GU med onc? Do you have a good relationship? Do you communicate well with him?
Could you tell me where
Yeah.
you're coming from with that question?
No, I'm asking you how you like him as a doc.
I've had my ups and downs. I have mixed feelings. I've had good feelings and negative feelings. Right now, I'm not going to be working with him. I'm taking a break for a while.
Okay. We ask you because that is very much the response we've gotten from other people, and we've seen people leave him and go to other docs. So I'm just curious how you're doing.
Thank you. That's very reassuring to hear. I didn't want to get into that because I don't understand where this communication will go. But I want to maintain my allegiance, my alliance with Sloan Kettering for whatever reasons. And currently, I just want to give you my history. It won't take that long. I saw Eugene Kwan at Mayo as soon as the C11 choline came out, because I wanted to see whether there was a possibility with a 0.13 of picking up, where it was in my body. And he allowed me to fly out there, get a C11 choline scan in 2018. And he did the MRI with gadolinium, and he didn't find anything at all. He at the time assumed that this was an indolent, slow-growing cancer, and that he wasn't very concerned about it. And he said, come back when it reaches 0.3 to 0.5. Well, it's taken me 4 years to reach that point.
Let me, because I don't need every detail, but we want to hit some high points. And we've got other Quan patients on this call. Where is your PSA right now? Dr. Jack, what's your...
He's muted.
There you go.
I'm back. Did you get that?
No, what's your PSA at right now?
0.52. Okay.
0.52. And what would you estimate is the doubling time of your PSA right now?
Well, Scardino told me it was 30. He told me it was 36 months. Danila just told me it's based upon the recent bounce from 0.36 3 months ago to 0.52. He gave it 11 months. So as a result, with my PSA, it's been very flat for many years and just suddenly bounced. And as a result, I got another PSMA scan. And I had my first PSMA done April 1st of last year. And I had my second PSMA scan done June 30th of this year. Totally nothing shown on either PSMA, nothing lights up. Danila thought for a while I was non-avid. I had a big argument with him about that because I felt he can only make that diagnosis histologically, and he came up with some theory, and that part of why I became alienated. I've spoken to Peter Carroll, who's been in mission control out in San Francisco, helping me through this, and I'll be talking to him this Friday in a virtual. And he said to me, it's slow, indolent. He wouldn't recommend doing anything. And that's the way Scardino felt all these years too. Dr. Danila has pushed the ABT from when I was barely detectable.
Right.
And it scared the daylights out of me. And Scardino said, that slow down. You don't have to. And Zaleski at Sloan Kettering also said, let's do the radiation. Scardino said, yeah, radiation guys do radiation. ADT guys do ADT. Let's slow down. Let's watch closely. So he observed me, and then he unfortunately suddenly retired with his Parkinson's, and that was a real loss. Because 20 years I was with Scardino.
So let me ask you a couple more questions because we have somewhat of a system here, and I also want to make a suggestion. Have you ever done any genetic testing or
yes,
either germline or somatic?
Yes, I've had all of that. And my original prostate tissue mutations, INH, BA, and SPOP, 2 mutations, no copy number alterations, no structural variants detected, microsatellites stable. The MSI sensor score is 2.28, nothing actionable. none of the bad mutations that would
Okay.
want actionable immunotherapy.
Okay. So when you talk to Peter, who's a good friend of ours, and I go back to 2000 with Peter.
Wonderful
You
guy.
can tell him, you talk with me, and you just say to him, "This
Rick?
is another Sorry?
You're Rick Davis?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you say to him, "This sounds like another Steve B
Another what?
situation," and he'll know who you're talking about.
Another what?
I've been Steve B.
Steve P?
And B as in boy.
Steve B. Okay.
Steve B. I've been working with another guy that Peter operated on in 2008 or 9, and it's a very, very, very similar situation to yours. Creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. Your original PSA was 3.9, which wasn't that high. How much cancer did you have when you were originally diagnosed? Do you remember?
One little area that was non-palpable, and then it was T2B at post-surgery. So I and clean nodes and clean seminal vessels,
Right.
margins clean, RONO disease.
Got it.
By the way, I
Yeah.
had with the MRI, I had a total bone MRI done, bone marrow done last year, and that was macroscopically nothing found.
Right.
I also had a repeat CT scan done FDG because they thought I had lung cancer. Because
So again, you just there you go. You're back with us. So to summarize, it sounds like you've taken all the steps, you've followed this all the way along with most of the time with MSKCC, but a little bit of the time maybe elsewhere, like with Dr. Carroll, and you've gotten good advice, and now you're coming on here and you're thinking, what would these guys do if they were in my shoes? Would they radiate? Would they do ADT? Would they just watch it? Is that a fair summary?
Exactly. And it's really down here. Alan Pollack, who's my radiation oncologist, he just told me he wants to give me a 68 grade to the prostate bed, 52/7 to the pelvic nodes, and consider a boost to any gross tumor identified on MRI.
Right.
All 34
Right.
fractions. And ADT 4 to 6 months Relugalex, and that's where I am right now, and I can't sleep. So I'm just asking you guys to help me out. I appreciate it.
Right. And by the way, where is Pollock? Is he at Sylvester?
He just wrote this big paper on comparing the 3 modes of treatment and coming out with saying 10% chance of biochemical failure if you get all 3.
Right. Where is he?
He's at
Where does he?
Sylvester, Miami.
Sylvester. That's what I thought. Okay.
Radiation oncology.
So I do have some ideas, but I'd love to let the guys. We've got guys on here. Is Bob McHugh on here today? No. Damn. Where's Bob McHugh when we need him? Who would like to take this one on and kick the ball off for Dr. Jack? Don't all shout at once.
I mean, I'll take a stab.
Okay.
I mean, Jack, I think if I lived to 82 and had a PSA of 0.5, doubling in a year, I think I'd watch it until I could actually see something on a scan.
And that's what I think Eugene Kwan's going to tell me when I just sent all my stuff to him. And that's kind of, I've been listening to him on podcasts and webcasts. And
the other thing that comes off, the other thing, Jack, that comes from this group, there's one adage, and you may be falling into it, which is too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yeah. Well, how do you reconcile that when you're frightened?
I mean, if you're asking for 6 different docs or 7, and they'll all give you a different opinion. And then even if 2 agree and then 3 are the other side and then one's out in left field, what do you do?
Well, what would you do? I mean,
I mean, I'm only telling you, as Rick said, I should use this expression, right? I'll do it, Rick. I'll avow I should live to 82, right?
I certainly.
And I would watch it until I mean, now he's going to irradiate. Yes, he thinks there's something in there, so he'll give you massive doses of pelvic irradiation all over. Who knows what it's going to do to you?
I agree.
So,
but how do they justify that? How do they come to the conclusion?
he's a radiation on, surgeons surge, radiation oncologists radiate, medical oncologists prescribe. This is what they get paid to do, and they want to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, to the extent that your life is going to be, it doesn't seem to me that your natural life is going to be cut short by this disease at the rate it's growing. And even if it gets, the PSA goes up a little more, well, maybe will be able to see where it is, so that local radiation will do it. But I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Who else? I mean, there are other people with recurrence watching very closely, trying to decide when to jump in. Alan Babcock, aren't you in that? I mean, I know you're not 82, but aren't you in that boat as well?
I'm sitting here looking to my wife and saying, whoa, what message am I going to get? I just went to see Dr. Wong, and she said, yeah, I think we need to use radiation, 34 treatments, and I'm going to refer you to NRE, the medical oncologist, because I think you've got an aggressive cancer. Now, she's telling me a lot more than Correa. I think this is aggressive, because I talked to her about, well, why don't we just wait till it gets picked up? And she was saying, I don't think that's a good idea because it might spread by then. So, yeah, I'm listening to this very intently, because the same thing. She's saying, no, I want to go in there and do radiation, and I want you to get hormone therapy.
Can they see it on your scan?
They have not seen it. She has me, I'm signed up for and there's a trial, but Correa said he would get a PSMA if I wanted it, but he said, Alan, I don't think they're going to pick anything up, but I know how stressed you are about, well, I didn't say that, but I read his mind. And I said, he said, yeah, if you want the PSMA, I'll get that for you. So I have one scheduled for the 29th of August.
And what's your PSA?
What's your current
Dr. Wong's office saying, Alan, chances of picking something up are slim. I'll just throw in one other thing.
What's your current PSA, Alan?
It's 0.2. 0.2. But that's from February, remember that? So in February it was, and unlike Correa, she said, bullshit, your PSA was detectable right after your operation. Dr. Correa said undetectable because it was so low. No, it was detectable. And then it jumped to 0.14, and then a month later.
We'll come back to you on yours, I promise. But it's not exactly the same, because it's taken 17 years for Dr. Jack. Sorry, it's taken 19 years for Dr. Jack to get to where he is right now. And it's taken you 3 months. Anybody else dealing with recurrence here? Is there anyone else that's got a recurrent situation?
So this is Alan Moskowitz. So I'll just give a perspective. I'm not dealing with recurrence today, but I was dealing with a recurrence, a few years ago.
Right.
And a couple things. So one is, when I first had radiation, and I was, 63, and this was after prostatectomy, my doctor said, look, let's just stick to the prostate bed. Let's not do the wider area. He said, you got a lot of side effects. You're young. He says, do this, keep it limited, and don't do any more. Okay. So if the comment I heard right was the doctor wanted to do something a bit beyond the prostate bed, I'd be extra cautious, particularly at your age. I'm not sure that the potential side effects are worth worth that treatment, at least in my opinion. And so the second comment is more recently when I had to pull the trigger on doing ADT and the other hormone therapy components. My PSA doubling time was about 16 months, and both Dr. Rowe at Mount Sinai and Dr. Chen at Sloan Kettering said, no, your PSA is only at 3 and it's only at 5. There's really no big need to treat. If you want to treat, we're fine with it. But they were very content to let, particularly Dr. O, he says, I have patients who let their PSA go up to 20. He says for him and for Dr. Chen, the doubling time was the key factor. And as long as I wasn't as below 6 months or thereabouts, they weren't concerned with the absolute number. So given your doubling time is a year, I don't think I'd be in a rush to do any treatment at all. If it changes and goes down to 3 months or 5 months, then I think I would. Okay, that's based on just my experience, but that's my point of view.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Let's hear from one more person and then we'll just try and pull the strings together. Anybody else have any thoughts from either the time they were waiting to intervene after their surgery or they see some similarity between Dr. Jack and their own treatment?
I'll go.
David, please.
So I was 64 when I had radiation, and it kicked my ass. If I'm 82 years old, and my doubling time is 11 months or a year, I would just sit back, relax, and just keep doing scans when you can. And when they see something, you can then do something about it. To be precautionary like that at 82 years old, I think is a little overzealous. And you look like you're in great shape. Bill says you're in great shape, Jack. Just enjoy every day. And until you have something to work on or something to focus on, then I would focus on it. But for right now, sit back, relax, stay on top of your scans, and just enjoy Key Biscayne.
that's you, David?
That's what I would do.
David, is it David? Is it?
Yes,
Yes.
that's David.
Thank you, David.
You're very welcome, Jack.
So Jack, let me try and pull a few strings together. And I think it's great that you're going to talk to Peter on Friday because he has a perspective of having worked with people for a very long time. He has no reason to hold on to them. And when he feels that they should start treatment, he'll move them on to the radiation oncology group and involve, if necessary, a medical oncologist at UCSF. And he manages people for a very long time. And so he's seen a lot of people in your shoes. Now, the important thing to take into account is that it's taken 17 years to get to this point, and your original disease was 3+4. So we can safely say you don't have very aggressive disease. That it's on the rise right now may be true, but that doesn't mean that it's aggressive disease, and that we have to take into account. If you would have said to me I had one little lesion of 5+4 and we took care of it, I would be more concerned right now, but that wasn't the situation. You were 3+4. Now, I think the advice that's come out that I've heard is don't worry, don't focus so much on your PSA, worry about your doubling time. And so I would drill down on doubling time with Dr. Carroll. I would also ask him, if you were his patient and given your age, when would you intervene? The third thing that I would ask him is to try and get a grip on this PSMA situation. You've had 2 PSMA scans, not much has been seen, and there are 2 responses from that. The first is PSA isn't high enough and there isn't enough to see, and the second is you're not PSMA avid. I don't know how we draw the conclusion between the 2. It could be that you're not PSMA avid. Histologically, I have to tell you that most of the time, as far as I know, the way they check if you're PSMA avid is with a PSMA scan. I've never known them do the morphology on it. Herb, can they check if you're PSMA avid from the morphology?
Not really, but what about, but the way they would do it is FDG. Jack, if you had an FDG.
I had an FDG.
And what did it show?
Nothing. And the reason I had the FDG is because the pulmonary nodules, they had to rule out a primary lung cancer rather than metastasis, because I had a couple of pulmonary nodules, which has since shrunken down. So I had an FDG and I had an iodine also, CT scan following that for follow-up. This is all Danila's, you know. And Peter Carroll told me that the only way to find out if the PSMA is avid or not is histologically. Those are his quotes. Believe me, I'm not sophisticated enough to know that.
Okay. Then if Peter says you can do it histologically, then there's got to be a way to do it. We haven't run across anybody who's done it. Len, do you have anything to say on that? Go ahead.
Yeah. When I had my bone biopsy at the NIH, they did the pathology on the bone tissue, and from that they told me that I was PSMA avid.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So, you know, so maybe that's what you got to do. You've just got to ask for a histological test to see if you're PSMA avid.
Histological on what?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even have anything showing.
Bone marrow aspiration. Yeah, they don't do bone marrow aspiration. So they have nothing to biopsy or detect. It's non.
Yeah. There's still radical prostatectomy tissue stored away somewhere.
Yes, and they can't find it. I'm really pissed off because I've been trying to get, you know, a liquid biopsy, liquid biopsy done through Stratera, you know, and I wanted to get all of that done to find out whether it's really circulating in my blood, and they can correlate the, you know, the tissue with the blood. I've already, you know, I've had, you know, when I had my genetic testing, they seem to have lost sight of the tissue, because the tissue bank in New York is so huge, it's like a big vault, and they can't find the fucking thing. So I'm really, Sloan Kettering, the great Sloan Kettering, I'm so disappointed. I'm telling you, they're turning out to be a big disappointment to me. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how you could get around this. I mean, if you did a liquid biopsy, and there was circulating tumor cells, could they do the histology on circulating tumor cells, Len?
It's a good question. I've been searching the literature on that, and that's really interesting.
They can.
Yeah.
They can.
Done.
But let me tell you, so what happens, your PSA is what it is, the doubling time is what it is, and they do the histology, and then they say, okay, you're PSMA avid. What would you do with that information?
I'd be very confused.
That's what I mean.
You think PSA,
you know, you're the, you know, why, if you're going to do a test that isn't going to affect your treatment.
Yeah. Well, they told me don't get an Aximum, don't get another C11 choline. They're not going to ship it. It's not as sensitive. And this is again Peter Carroll. And then they said go with the PSMA and stick to it. It's the best thing around. I was going to get the PYL, but they didn't have that available.
So again, we're going to have to move on. I'm watching the time because we've got 12 guys that need time tonight. But here's what I would conclude on that. I think it is important to know if you're PSMA avid, because if you know you're PSMA avid, you know you can use the PSMA scans to monitor yourself. And if you can use the PSMA scans, you get a PSMA scan every few months, and that's what you do, and you don't worry until you see something. So I think it is important. If it were me, I would want to know if I was PSMA avid or not. That's the first thing. In terms of whether you get a Illuccix or you get a Locomets or you get a Pylarify scan, I don't think that really matters. There's not a huge amount of difference. And since you have a working relationship with Peter, whoever scans you, wherever it is in the country, you're going to send that scan to Peter, and there's no better eye in the country to look at any one of those 3 scans, because he's been involved in all 3 of them.
All my scans, you know, so, and he's terrific.
Sorry, Pete. Sorry, Jack.
Thomas Hope read my scan. Who works
Yeah,
with,
I mean, you know, if Tom Hope or Peter reads the scans, they're the best eyes in the country for this. They develop this stuff. So, you know, if it were me, what would I do right now? I'd try and find out if we can tell from CTs from your circulating tumor cells. We got to find out if you're PSMA avid, because you should be comforted by that, because then you can depend on doing regular PSMA. If not, I would say to Peter, given my history and it's so slow, give me a number. And whatever number he gives you, I wouldn't go anywhere else. You know, this is what I tell people. When you got somebody really good, stick with them.
a number? What does that, give me a number what? What does that mean?
The PSA, your PSA level at which he would intervene.
I get it.
And then, you know, if hopefully at that point, if we're still not seeing any lesions to focus on, if it were me, I probably would radiate the pelvic girdle and the prostate bed, to be sure, since we don't exactly know where it is.
What about, I just read one more thing. I just read a paper, you know, about micrometastasis and sleep dormant cells becoming sleeping after 20 years. I was trying to understand how this could happen after 20 years. And I read this paper that scared the shit out of me. And it's really all about micromets being there from the get-go and not being aware of it. And suddenly it goes to sleep for 20 years and it wakes up and it escapes.
That's right.
Fly now. Jeez.
That's right.
You're familiar with that.
That's right, Jack, I was T3A, okay? I had seeds and IMRT from Mac Roach and 2.5 years of hormone therapy. I was sitting on a patient committee with Peter and Mac when I went through this, all right? I knew these guys. The concern was always the micrometastasis. This is the nature of our disease. Every year I go in, thank God, I am always less than 0.1, but I could go back next year and all of a sudden I could be at a 0.5. And then, you know, so yes, this is what we live with. And, you know, if you want to start talking about the anxiety part, I'll bring Dr. John in, but I think you know as much as Dr. John knows.
Terrific. Thanks, guys.
Let me just interject that I just found a couple of papers, including one with Michael Morris as the first author, and including Nick Vogelsang and Dan Petrolak, that you can look at PSMA expression in CTCs.
Okay. So you
That's
know,
very good for us to know for the future.
It is. The problem is what lab is going to do it. So we've got to, you know, now we've got to find a lab, because I don't think FMI does it when FMI pulls CTCs and when Caris pulls CTCs and you know, the other guys, I don't think that they look for PSMA. So you're going to have to schmooze Peter and say, Peter, can you tell me where we can get this test done? Jack, we got to move on. Sorry. I hope we've been helpful, and keep coming back, man. Keep coming back. Okay. David knows where to find us. We've got we should add that, you know, we don't just have a psychiatrist here. We've got retired pharmacologists. We've got Herb still runs a lab at the NIH. So we've got some smart guys. I don't include myself amongst those. I have to go ask them what to do. All right, let's
David.
let's start with Ken Anderson because we shortchanged Ken last time, and we'd love to hear what's going on with him.
Okie dokie. Well, last time I was probably telling you that my PSA was 111. But today, what I really want to bring up is for anyone doing lutetium. I drove up to Vancouver, BC last week, and 5 weeks and 2 days after crossing the border, I tried to come back in the United States and I lit up their scan. About 3.5 hours later, I got through customs and immigration. They thought I was carrying plutonium.
Ken, did you have a letter? Did you have a letter from your physician?
I never gave a letter a thought, but I would absolutely recommend if you're planning to travel abroad to get a letter that you had lutetium.
They gave me
I was shocked, Herb,
every
that
time
after 5 weeks and
yeah,
2 days, I still lit up the scan.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
surprised it's so long, but in New York City, you can go too close to a police officer and light it up the first day or two.
But I
They
will
gave me a
say that,
letter.
but Ken, I will say Hopkins gives me a letter each time saying the date that I had it.
Yeah, this again, I found lutetium in Phoenix from, a good doctor, but it's not what he normally does. So, I mean, I will definitely get a letter each time. So, yeah, I don't want that to happen. PSA, I've had 2 first rounds of Pluvicto. I had a round, and I don't have the dates right in front of me, but, I was in that window where they did discontinue the cycles. So I got the first round, and my PSA held actually after the first round, it dropped 5 points. And then, 2 months later, I get the second first round, and my PSA 2 weeks prior was 111. So it went from 91 to 111. Then I had a fairly long wait between the 2 first cycles, and it had gone up to 145. So I don't know, Pluvicto may or may not work for me. Paul at MD Anderson said since the schedule was kind of screwed up, he'd wait, and I'm going to wait through 2 more cycles to see whether or not it's an effective treatment. So at the moment, 145 is my PSA.
So what I would say, because we've seen this enough times, is that some guys don't respond for 2 or 3 cycles, and then all of a sudden they die. So, I think you just have to hang in. Who here has done lutetium and they haven't had an immediate response, or they've seen it go north instead of south to begin with? Anybody on the call?
Yeah, I mean, for me, after 3 weeks after my first Pluvicto, it went up. And of course I was nervous. And then at Ken, I was in the same situation you were, where it was 12 weeks until I got my second. But by the time I got my second, it had dropped significantly. So it went up initially, and of course I was anxious, but then it went down.
Yeah, I
But
think that's why Paul has me waiting 2 additional cycles.
Right. Your level was fairly low. Dennis, what about you? Dennis McGuire, what about you?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I got a response on my first treatment, both times. So both first treatments, I went down close to 50%.
Okay. Anybody else who went north after their first
Well, I
Pluvicto
certainly
trip?
went north, but I think my situation is just too complicated to be of much value in this discussion right now with actinium, lutetium, surgery, so forth. So, but yeah, my PSA went up the last time to about 185.
Well, like I said, Rick, I'm not too worried about it. Paul's not too worried about it. So, I mean, if it continues to rise after the next cycle, I was listening to a guy at Peter McCallan, an Australian, and their comment was, if in the first two rounds of lutetium your PSA continues to rise, there's probably like a 1% chance that it's not going to continue. So I think, quite honestly, after the next round of lutetium, if my PSA doesn't take a step back, I don't know if I'll do number 4. I'll move on to something else. Maybe it's like something Bryce Allen's bipolar antigen therapy, or I'm not sure if I'll do cabazitaxel next. And I agree, standard of care should be first on everyone's mind, and then these clinical trials maybe second. But there's been some success with BAT, so I don't know. Lutetium hopefully will work, but if not, on to BAT.
Ken, when is the third planned? When's your third
Well,
session
it was
coming up?
supposed to be, because it was 5 weeks and 2 days when I crossed the border, it was supposed to be tomorrow, but it got delayed because Novartis said they couldn't deliver it. So I'm scheduled at the moment on the 9th. I go back to Phoenix on the 3rd, which I'm not looking forward to because I know it's raining and humid and hot. So at the moment, I'm up in the Northwest.
Okay, so tell us before we move on, tell us the end of the story. How the hell did you get out of what I'm assuming it was the US side that pulled you over, and how did you get out
Yeah,
of
you
their
mean I
grip?
drove up to their check-in booth and they said, "Do you work in the nuclear field?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Why? Is there something wrong?" And they said, "Yeah, you're hot." And I said, What do you mean I'm hot?" And they said, "You light up on our scan. Your car does." And they took me in. And I had to wait for 40 minutes. They did a complete body check. And then they did their little scanner 3 times. And the third time it said plutonium. And I said, they didn't use plutonium. I mean, I don't know where the hell they got plutonium, but they hadn't seen it before where some person lights up. And so then they go tear apart my car, and it was full of shit. I mean, I was camping on the way up to my friends in Vancouver, so I had stuff everywhere. So they had to take everything out and go through all my stuff, put it all back, and they had to give me a letter stating, "Hey, we checked him out. There's no threat," or something. So, but definitely, Herb, I'll take your advice and get a letter.
Hey, Ken, I wanted to
Of
go
course,
back
I
to.
wonder how effective the letter would be, Ken. Anybody
Oh,
can,
I think they would have done the same thing. They thought I was bringing a bomb in.
right.
You're on
So
a
I don't
list
think the
now,
letter would
Ken.
have worked.
I mean, because
They
I
should
came
have
back,
offered it to you.
I mean, I had 2 European trips between my Pluvicto, but it was more like 8 weeks after my Pluvicto. And
Doesn't
nobody,
it doesn't it seem like that's a long time for the radiation to stay in your body? How many weeks was it? Or
5
days?
weeks and 2 days.
Yeah, they told me in 24 to 48 hours
no.
that I would be below the level that would uh, make let's set off the alarms.
Guys, this is a lot of fun talking about this, and the professor has a Geiger counter at home that he walks around with.
Probably a good idea.
So for a small fee, he could FedEx that Geiger
Right.
counter anywhere around the country, I'm sure. And as long as 10% of the fee goes to AnCan, all right, Herb? We got to move on unless there's anything urgent. Ken, our thoughts and hopes are with you, and my bet is you're going to respond this time, but I hope I'm right. Okay, Carl Foreman, let's since you have something, make it quick, and let's see if we can help you.
Okay. I guess it's more of an update. I do have an appointment with Dr. Soraya, my oncologist, tomorrow. He's back from vacation, so we'll be reviewing the results of the scans. We're going to talk about Pluvicto. I did contact Novartis and spoke to a representative from Novartis who said that they are still having distribution issues of getting the lutetium out there to the centers that need them. They did identify in New York, there were 3 locations in New York City, Mount Sinai, MSK, and Weill Cornell. So Weill Cornell, where I have the contact, a little while ago, I got a email from Tagawa of Weill Cornell. He said that looks like sounds like a reasonable option, assuming the PSMA PET is positive. So that's where I'm at now, and not much else.
Okay, so any questions for us?
Not really. I guess, tomorrow we'll hopefully make things clearer for me. And I do have some of my options to discuss. I don't know what options he's going to offer, other than he did say Pluvicto was an option. And we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Okay, so my only words of advice, if you're meeting Dr. Tagawa tomorrow, is to bear in mind.
I'm meeting Soraya tomorrow.
Oh, you're meeting Soraya tomorrow. Okay. All right. Well, then it's not relevant. What I was about to say is not relevant. So yes. So if you're meeting Soraya tomorrow, then if he does decide, if you between you decide that you want to do Pluvicto, I guess you'll figure out where you're going to get it in New York City, right?
Yes, and also Tagawa has several patients with Soraya, so they do share patients.
Okay, just remember, you're not a lab rat, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, well, keep us posted. Anybody else have anything for Carl before we move on? Okay.
I'll just say one thing. One of the side effects, and I don't know if it's of all my various treatments in the past, but I tend to get on a regular basis a very sore throat where it's almost like a burning, and I know in the past I had acid reflux, but using some of the Tums, it hasn't alleviated that burning feeling in the throat. I don't know if anybody else has had that side effect.
Anybody else has anyone else had that issue from any type of treatment at all? Burning throat?
Okay.
Guess
Carl,
you're on your own.
You're not taking prednisone at this time, are you?
No, my doctor had stopped it about 10 days ago.
Okay. Prednisone can cause an ulcer in your esophagus.
Ah.
Oh, and how long's this burning throat been going on?
Well, it's been more frequent than the past couple of weeks, but it has been a regular occurrence, let's say probably three times a week for the past several months.
And how long have you, and you were taking prednisone, you just stopped about a week ago, finally?
Right.
And that was the end of you, titrating off it?
Yeah, and it does seem to be getting worse now that I'm off the prednisone.
Okay.
Coincidence?
Well, I don't know, but maybe Gary's onto something, and maybe that's something that you should raise with Soraya tomorrow, because he ought to be familiar with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We will talk to Dr. John. Dr. John, what's on your mind?
Yeah. Got a guy sent to me today, California guy, diagnosed in 2013, Gleason 8, had a RP, got a couple years in remission, then Lupron got a couple years, then added Enza, got a couple more years, then got a metastasis and a recurrence. Carbazitaxel got a couple more years, brings us up to the present. He has sprouted a BRCA2 mutation. They're offering him a PARP inhibitor. He wants to do lutetium. He claims that Medicare won't pay for it. So my question in starting him off, and I'll invite him to group maybe, is which should he do first, and should he pay $40,000 for lutetium? I mean, why shouldn't he get reimbursed for it?
A couple of things, John. We really try not to discuss third parties in the group because there's so much going on that we can't. It's hard for us to bring people in. So if the guy shows up, we'll give him all the time he needs.
Okay,
I'll invite.
invite.
It's very hard for us for people to come in and say, I got a friend or whoever it is, and then we're talking through third parties. I'm more than happy to talk to you about this offline. It's just not fair to the group. So I'll talk to you offline, but the answer is that as long as he meets all the qualifications, I don't know why he couldn't get lutetium. It doesn't make sense. But it's possible that he doesn't meet the qualifications, I don't know, has he done chemo, for example?
Carbazitaxel.
Okay, so if he's done it all, then he should be talking to Novartis, to AAA, and they've got people who can help him for that.
Okay, I'll try to bring him in. Sorry, guys.
Reach out. So let's bring him in. What about you? Anything for you?
Yeah, actually, I talked to Dr. Petrolak today. He's going to, I had a PET scan that was pretty much clear. There was a lesion in the lung that was apparently slightly avid for the uptake. I don't know what the heck that means. I'm going to try to get some old chest CTs and bring them down to the radiologist for comparison. And then I had another little area that lit up near my surgery for the AUS, and Petrolak said that was artifact. Overall, he called it a clean study, but encouraged me to get records on that lung, whatever it is, and find out what that is. But he doubts it's lung cancer, and he doesn't think it's prostate cancer. So given all that and the fact that I've been 2 years on treatment, even though I'm a 9, he says I deserve a try off of drugs.
Hold on a minute. I want to come back to what you just said. But before, what type of scan was it where they saw this perspective? So it was a PSMA scan that showed up these 2 little spots.
Yeah.
But why does Dr. Petrolak think that that's not from, or he's saying he doesn't think it's lung cancer, or he doesn't think it's prostate cancer?
Right, and neither did the radiologist. They said, probable inflammatory or infectious etiology. I don't know why it looks like that rather than a lung cancer or something like that, because, you know,
So I just want to slip in that I'm working starting today. I'm trying to see if we can put together a little seminar to hold before one of the meetings on how to read these PSMA scans, because I think it would be very helpful for all of us if we had a better feel for how these things get read. So I'm talking to a lady at Cardinal Health who thinks she may be able to help us put something together for just a short hour session before one of our meetings. So watch this space. Now, the next bit was even more interesting. Did you say he thinks he may be able to take you off of the drugs?
yes.
Uh,
Yep. So he invited me to go ahead off my Lupron, which I just got a 4-month shot, and my darolutamide, and just watch the PSAs. And he says he thinks
And
it'll
where,
take 3/4 of a year to a year to recover. And it might not, given the fact that I never did have very good testosterone levels when I wasn't being supplemented. But still, I'm bound to feel better.
yeah. Now, what's your PSA right now?
0.019.
Okay. Making a note, but you just got this damn 4-month shot. So now you're going to be twiddling your fingers. Oh,
I
John.
got to twiddle my thumbs for 3 more months.
Oh, bummer. Bummer. But I will say, I think everybody's happy that you can get a bit of a break. You deserve it. You
I'm
deserve
happy,
it.
but there's a doctor saying, hey, I'm going to give you a break, but first have this 4-month shot.
Well, I got the shot on July 7th, I think it was.
Okay.
Hey, John, I'm curious, how are you getting a PSMA PET scan with a PSA less than 0.1?
I know,
Yeah.
I know. He gets it on the nurses told me he gets it on everybody that he's thinking of giving a drug holiday to, no matter what. And apparently it gets paid for. And, Yale's been doing them since the very beginning, and I don't mean the beginning of authorized FDA approved, I mean the beginning of research. And they've read hundreds and hundreds of them by now. Maybe they have a way of doing all this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. Very good point, Len. Very, very, very
I wonder,
good point.
I didn't ask him this question. I wonder when I should stop the darolutamide, now or when the Lupron runs out.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Ask him
How are
if he
you
can
doing on
take
the
that full.
darolutamide?
Ask him if they can pull that skeleton of 3 months out of you. That
Yeah,
little structure.
yeah, there is a kind of a hard little ball of Eligard in me. Maybe they can suck it out.
Oh boy. Okay, we're moving along. Anybody else have anything for Dr. John?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to ask John, how is he doing on darolutamide? Did you have less fatigue than when you were on Abby?
Actually, a little bit more, but I'm sure I had a lot less problems than if I were on enzalutamide.
Yeah, interesting.
But I also, all the edema and all the uncontrollable hypertension went away. I would say it's been a very good drug for me. I've been on it for a year.
Right.
Did you feel like you had better or worse mental clarity on the darolutamide versus the abiraterone?
About the same, slightly worse.
About the same. Slightly worse. Okay.
Does anybody know the strength if you're taking 2 pills darolutamide in the morning and 2 in the evening, and if you only take 1 and 1, does anybody have any idea how that affects, like how effective half a dose is compared to a whole dose? I
Yeah,
know.
Larry, I did that for about 4 months and kept the PSA didn't budge.
And that's where you're at.
I did it for about 6 months, and it changed mine.
You did what? You switched to half dose?
I went to a half dose for about 6 months, and my PSA started going up. And I went back on full dose, and my PSA is still going up.
Well, bad data, bad situation.
Yes, who knows? Who knows?
You know, I've got the pills in hand, and I'm just thinking about starting slowly, starting with 1 in the morning. It's off topic, maybe. With 1 in the morning and night.
Try it. See if it makes a difference.
Yeah, see if it makes a difference because.
I don't know about that.
Experimented.
It wasn't tested at low doses, so why try it unless you have a problem on the full dose?
Yeah. Well, the problem is, this is really getting into my stuff, which I didn't agree to talk about. But I'm on a rosuvastatin, and there's a strong possibility of very negative drug reaction between darolutamide and statins. And
I don't know about that.
well, yeah, that's what they say. They recommend cutting the statin down to 5 milligrams a day, which is dramatic. Anyway, never mind. Get into my stuff.
Have you talked to Dr. Audio about this?
Yeah, she says speak to your primary about that.
No, have you talked to Dr. Audio about halving the dose of darolutamide?
No, I haven't, because I'm trying to stockpile.
Well, I think that's where you got to start. And I wouldn't do anything without talking to. Don't be self-prescribing. If you feel like that's what you've got to do, you've got to start by talking to your GU medical oncologist. Not this group. Larry, I mean, I got to say, we can tell you what happens when the guys did it, but we can't encourage you to do it one way or the other. And you've got to have this discussion with Dr. Audio.
Vision, I'm just looking for,
I know, but I'm just saying, and as far as Dr. Audio throwing the simvastatin or the statins over to your PCP, I think that's Bush League. She prescribes the drug. She's supposed to know what the interactions are.
Her oncologist, her nurse practitioner responded to me. I won't speak to her until next week. I'll bring it.
Well, you need to send a note. The nurse practitioner saying speak to your PCP is Bush.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not the answer. I mean, your PCP didn't prescribe the darolutamide. He knows next to nothing about darolutamide. I mean, that's the responsibility of a medical oncologist.
Plus, the PCP could switch you to a different statin easily enough.
But I think that knowing which statin to switch to should come from a GU medical oncologist.
I just looked up the package insert for darolutamide, and what it says exactly is that there's an interaction with simvastatin, fluvastatin, rosuvastatin, and atorvastatin. And it says avoid concomitant use that are drugs that are BCRP, and I forget what that means, substrates where possible. If used together, monitor patients more frequently for adverse reactions and consider dose reduction in the BCRP substrate drug.
Yes, I've looked that up.
So that's on the package in for darolutamide. So it's a known interaction.
Len and Peter, what did you continue to take your statins as normal when you were on darolutamide?
No, I had to cut the dose, Rick, because darolutamide will increase your rosuvastatin blood levels by a 5-fold degree. So for me, I was on 10 milligrams, which would have been the equivalent of 50 milligrams. So I cut it back to 5.
Which they recommend cut to 5.
I've never been on a statin. I've never had a statin before.
Okay. All right, guys, we got to keep rolling, but I'm glad. Thank you for raising that, Larry, because for all guys that are considering darolutamide, just a heads up that you got to watch your statin dose as well. Jerry Pelfrey, what's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to give you an update. Since I had my gadolinium 68 PSMA PET CT scan, they did, everything looked fine from it. No new invasion into soft tissue or any of my organs. But as you know, I have a lot of metastasis in my spine, and they said that there was a little bit of cancer showing up in L4. And so Dr. Bajaj at Arizona Oncology, who is not my main oncologist, Dr. Singh is at Mayo, and he hadn't talked to Dr. Singh, but he wanted to put me on Provenge and do, and I guess have radiology just x-ray the L4 site. I talked to Dr. Singh this morning, and Mayo does not use Provenge anymore. They stopped it about 4 or 5 years ago because, as Dr. Singh said, the cost-benefit ratio wasn't proving beneficial. It's a very expensive. He told me it would cost like $120,000 to do that.
What would it cost you, Jerry?
No,
I don't want to
wouldn't.
get into cost benefits of Provenge because it's a much longer discussion, and some people may agree, some people would not agree, and there's some very strong now overall survival data. What would it cost you?
No, I told you it doesn't cost me anything.
So why not do it? So why not do it?
Because I'm not going to do it because Singh said no. He's got other better ways of doing it than with Provenge, he said.
Well,
and
my question to Singh would be, what is the downside? What's the downside of doing Provenge? Did you ask him that?
The downside, he said, is you don't get that 2.5 year response. He said they were getting
what 2.5 year response? No, there's no 2 to 3 months. What? There's no PSA. There's no PSA. If that's what he's telling you, he doesn't understand the drug. There's no 2.5 year response. There's no 2 month response with Provenge. All we know about Provenge is that it lengthens overall survival. Herb, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I mean,
Hang on a minute.
Let Herb explain, and then we'll come back to you, Jerry.
No, let me tell you what the Provenge insert says.
I'm not interested in what the Provenge label says. I'm interested in hearing what the research shows from the Provenge people, okay? Let's just hear it, and then you can rebut it.
That's what I'm saying, Rick. It's Provenge's own product. They sent it to me.
Would you allow Herb to talk, please? And then we'll come back to you.
Okay,
Herb, please go ahead.
Okay, I mean, Rick, Len, and I all went to a seminar about Provenge. And at this seminar, they said, number one, which we all know, Provenge doesn't touch your PSA. There's no way to measure the efficacy of Provenge up front. But then they did show overall survival data of people who had Provenge based on what their PSA was at the time they had Provenge. And for people with low PSA, We're in the, like in the 3 to 5 range, somewhere around that. The median survival in their data was 4 years. And that's all you can say. And it, compared to no Provenge, it's much less. So it was a significant overall survival advantage without any biochemical readout.
Now, their literature states exactly what you said. For someone that has a PSA below 5 point something, whatever they wrote. And then they showed, and by the way, that's a 37% difference. Then they showed someone that was a little above 5, and it went down from 37% to I think like 27%. Then they had 2 others with higher. Let me put it this way: the higher the PSA, the lower the percentage of difference. Okay.
So what is your
Understand?
PSA?
Oh, my PSA is 0.21. Right.
So
I'm going to get it checked tomorrow. I do it every month.
So Jerry, so you're in that extension range. You're in the
Right.
range of maximum benefit.
Right. I know that, but I also trust Mayo.
Yeah, but Jerry, I got to tell you, I think maybe Rick was present. I don't know about Herb. It was about, you said Mayo for 5 years has not been using Provenge, right?
Yeah, it's something like 5 or 6 years.
And I can tell you why. I bet you dollars to donuts it's because Eugene Kwan, who at a PCR conference about 5 years ago said, I wouldn't give Provenge to my dog. So I'm sure that he lobbied heavy for Mayo Clinic not to give Provenge to anybody. But, you know, Kwan said that long before this data came out that Herb just quoted, that folks with a very low PSA benefit tremendously from Provenge. And Kwan, he's a fine doctor, but he's very stubborn, I think. And once he made up his mind on that, he's not going to change it.
Yeah, well, also we know he's a promoter of his own beliefs. I mean, he promotes himself or his beliefs. Yeah, I know.
So Jerry, the issue is, and you brought it up, that Mayo doesn't want to do it because of, quote, cost benefit. Whereas we would argue that we have benefit and you're not going to pay the cost.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I mean, it's already been okay.
So that's why I did it.
All right, then let me ask you this. Since you two have had it, I don't know how many have used Provenge that's with us, but from what I understand, there are a lot of very hard side effects. Did you have any of those?
Nothing.
Nothing
Basically,
from here.
They take out your blood, your white cells, and then they shove them back in again.
Yep, I know. I've read it all.
I had zero, other than I had needle sticks, and it was boring. But that was, I wouldn't call that a side effect. I'd say that's part of the treatment process.
Right, right.
I would say that there are 10 people on this call right now. I'm just looking, around 10 folks who have had Provenge at some time or the other. And I don't think any of them have seen, we haven't seen anybody have adverse side effects since the first 2 or 3 years when it was given and people were underhydrated. And there were hydration issues and they'd have to stop and give you saline and then recommence. So I'm not sure where, again, you're hearing, where you're seeing that or hearing it. The only thing I will say about Provenge, and I always say the same thing, it's like chicken soup. It cannot hurt, and it certainly may help. And I would say that if you've got a doctor that doesn't want to give it to you, you say, look, doc, I appreciate that for whatever your reasons, but I'd like to get it. And you go ahead and you get it. And he's not going to say anything.
Yeah, I know he's not. Of the 10, what's the worst side effect that all 10 have had, if any?
I can't have,
Anyone want to say?
Jerry, the worst side effect was not at all, no side effect.
Yeah,
and I
right.
can,
This
Jerry,
is
second that. No side effects.
You know,
Really,
I
Ken?
drove,
Latimer. This is Latimer.
I drove there, I got my blood removed, I drove back home, I didn't feel anything.
This is
Okay.
Latimer. I just finished Provenge. The first treatment, I had no side effects. The second one, I had headaches off and on for a couple of days. But the third one, that night, there's a list of side effects you can have. I had them all. I had fever, I had headaches, I had body chills, I had bone aches. But the next morning, the fever broke and it went away. But I still had headaches for off and on for another more than a week. Advil didn't help, Tylenol didn't help. They just kind of came and go whenever they felt like it. But now I'm 3 weeks out and I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you, Al, for telling me. I appreciate that.
But you know, it was bad that night, but like I said, it disappeared quickly. Well, the worst of it. So now we'll see.
Yeah, okay.
I think a lot of these side effects are related to hydration issues, and they encourage you to be very, very well hydrated when you go in. Certainly for the leukapheresis and when they well and Al, was this the leukapheresis or when they put it back in?
No, it's when they put it back in. I had no issues at all. I had no issues at all with the leukapheresis. That was no side effects whatsoever. Maybe a little fatigue, but that was it.
Yeah. So you know, we've heard this, but it's really mild compared to all the other treatments.
Oh,
so we got to move on, but I have one question.
One more question. Did you continue, like with me, would you continue your Zytiga while you're going through the Provenge?
Herb, do you want to answer that? Because you talked to Larry Fong
Right,
on that.
I asked Larry Fong about that, and he said there's no reason not to.
Okay.
Jerry, I was on it all the way through.
All right, great. Thank you.
So,
all
Jerry,
right, I'm done.
I do have a question for you. This L4 lesion, was that there before, or is this something new that they see?
This is new. Although I've had, I've had cancer in all the vertebrae, so, and I haven't seen them yet because I'm fighting with Arizona Oncology to get a disc of the exam and the differential diagnosis. And they seem to have a hard time to give it to me.
So the question
Anyway,
I'll follow up Rick's question, Jerry. Are those lesions something that should be irradiated?
They were irradiated right away because I remember I had a PSA of 3,193 when I started.
But what about this new one?
Oh, no, we haven't. We just found it. I just had the PSMA scan, 2.5 weeks ago.
Right. So what Herb is saying is that whatever radiation you got originally was not focused on those lesions. Those lesions may have gone because we killed off the cancer and we've starved it. They didn't go as a result of getting radiation. And so what you're now saying is there is now a spot that we can see, and that should be a focused spot radiation. That's very different to the radiation that you got 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. I agree. I know. And that's what we're talking about is spot radiation. But from what I understand, also, they do spot radiation only with X-ray. They don't do it with proton.
Well,
at least that's what.
I can't tell. I do know that they do it with photon. They do it, and they can do it with either SBRT or IMRT. But if you do it with IMRT, it's a greater number of sessions. There's no reason to do it, so you're best off to do it with SBRT if you have the option.
Okay. Thank you.
Usually with SBRT, it's anywhere between 1 and, if it's a single lesion, I think it's like between 1 and 3 sessions. Ken Anderson, do you know the answer? How many sessions is it with SBRT, roughly?
I would say it's more like 3 to 5.
3 to 5, even if you only have 1 lesion?
I think they'd still want to do 3 to 5.
Okay.
For me, it was 1 session for each particular spot.
Yeah, that's what I thought, I must say. Yeah. But anyway, you'll see it shouldn't be that much. Whereas if you go in and you do it with IMRT, it can be 10 sessions. That's what George Denyon's going through right now.
Which one
Okay.
Jerry, this is Dennis. What was the SUV max on that 1 lesion? Do you remember?
Tell me what, Dennis?
The SUV max, you had a PSMA, PET CT. They should report the finding.
Dennis?
Yeah.
You've got the same Bajaj in Tucson Oncology as I do, right? You go to Bajaj.
I do, but I got my PSMA PET at UCLA Health. And they give you a report, and with each lesion, there's what they call an SUV max. And depending on what that is, I had some, and they were so small, they weren't worth doing anything with. I just took the major ones, and they kind of rank them for you. And those are the ones I had radiated.
Well, you see, that's where I'm at a disadvantage because I can't get Arizona Oncology to get me a disc and to give me the differential diagnosis. All Bajaj did was give me a call and say that everything was clear in in my body except for the L4 lesion or little spot that they found. So I'm bugging them. I keep bugging them. I don't know why they're not sending them to me. So Dennis, I'm sorry, I can't answer.
So again, you've asked them, I'm sure, through the portal, right, Jerry?
Through the portal, through email, through a call.
Okay. As long as you've asked them through the portal, it's in the record. You've got to keep bugging them. Secondly, was this a Pylarify scan or Locomets or Illucix?
It was a gadolinium 68.
No.
And maybe
Forget
it wasn't
the gadolinium.
PSMA.
Forget the gadolinium. What type of gallium 68 PSMA was it? Was it Illucix or was it Locomets?
I can't answer that right now.
Okay.
I didn't ask.
If it was Illucix, Telix, you can ask for an overread. All right. Okay. One of the problems right now is that if they're not using Pylarify, they don't have experience in reading these scans. And you have to question. Now, you can come back to me and we can get your scan reread either by AAA, Advanced Accelerator Applications, or by Telix, if it was a gallium 68. I just need to know which type. I'm working with both those folks. We're trying to force a situation where the reader divulges how many they've read and the patient can ask for an overread. I can tell you right now that if it's a Telix scan, which the name of the scan is Illucix, ILLUCIX, ILLUCIX. If it's an Illucix, you can get it. You can request an overread right now. If it's a Locamet scan, I can arrange the overread for you. We can arrange the overread for you. But I strongly suggest that we get these scans read again, and that's what I've been advocating for with the manufacturers.
Okay. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's what I was thinking of, was getting the disc. And actually, I didn't know the companies you just named, but I was going to have one of the radiology oncologists at Mayo read it. The one I.
Okay, you don't need to do that because they don't have the experience either. These are all new scans. If you want to take it to somebody, you've got to take it to somebody like Peter Carroll or Tom Hope, who have been looking at these scans, or Calais, Al Latimer's guy, who's been reading these scans for years. The guys who haven't been reading them for that long, doesn't matter where they are, they don't have the experience. This is what we're trying to force the companies to provide and to offer. So find out who's done it, let me know, and I will call the companies and we'll get you rolling. If it's Telix, you go back and you say, I want it reread. And if the doctor gives you grief, I'll take it up with Telix.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. You've said enough. I've taken too much of your time, but thank you.
Okay. Al Latimer, since we're talking about you, please speak up.
Okay, I came on camera, good. I wanted to update a little bit on Pluvicto first. I finished my Pluvicto just about exactly 6 months ago now. By the time I was done, I had a really bad case of dry mouth and my sense of taste had changed a lot. And I suffered through that for about 3 months, and I was using a lot of biotin and sucking on frozen things. But after 3 months, it started to wane, and now it's almost gone. I'm almost back to normal. So it took 5 to 6 months for me for that to happen. So I don't know, there's a lot of people here now that are doing Pluvicto at one stage or the other. Hopefully you won't have this dry mouth problem, but it is apparently pretty common. So that's my first comment. Second, on the Provenge, like I said a few minutes ago, I finished that a few weeks ago, and the doctor, I just saw Dr. Belusic at University of Miami, and he wants me to see the radiation oncologist there about doing some spot radiation, because he feels that there will be some kind of a synergy between radiating some of the spots and the Provenge, which I finished a few weeks ago. And I was wondering if anybody else has done that, been through that, had any success with it, because that seems to be. And by the way, Dr. Scholes in LA, he also is suggesting that I do this. He referred me to Dr. Steinberg at UCLA, and Steinberg declined to consider it. He said I had too many spots, wasn't worth it. So anyway, my question is, has anyone else done the spot radiation after Provenge with any success?
So I'd like to ask, I know there's a couple of guys that have studied it, and I know I've heard at least 2 of our GU med oncs, including Dr. E, have said they definitely consider that there is some synergy between radiation and Provenge? Len or Herb or Ben, do any of you guys, can any of you guys speak to that?
Belusic used to work at NIH or NCI, and he said he's seen it even in some pretty severe cases. So he's pretty high on me, pursuing that issue right now.
So I think what the effect that they're thinking about is called the abscopal effect.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know the word.
And the idea is that if you irradiate, you then release things that the T cells will react with. You already have activated T cells from Provenge. They're waiting and poised to strike. And by irradiating the spot, you may release some trigger that will activate these T cells even more. And the theory being that even if you just radiate one or two spots, that the activated T cells may then attack all of them. So that's the theory. So the idea would be, yes, you have a lot of spots, but they're not going to irradiate all those spots. Just the idea to try to trigger what is still under hypothetical situation, because there's really no proof of the abscopal effect. Now, I will tell you in my own situation, Al, I feel like doing Pluvicto after Provenge was the right sequence, because here now I'm irradiating my tumor in the presence of these activated T cells. So, but I don't know that I can point to any real literature where anybody's done a trial where they can say that this is what is happening.
Well, my PSA was too high to do the Provenge initially, but then after I did the Pluvicto, my PSA went down to 1.5. So it turned out to be that was a good time to do that. So maybe I should do some more Pluvicto instead of radiation.
That's between you and Belusic. You could ask him about that.
Yeah, that hasn't come up yet, but I'm going to bring it up when I talk to the radiation oncologist. Apparently he's the one that's going to be in charge of the Pluvicto as well.
I think I would do some pretty extensive diagnostic work before I'd make a decision of what to do next.
Yeah, well, clearly they're going to restage me completely before anything further happens.
Right.
Right now, my PSA is slowly continuing to creep up.
Yeah, and the other issue is that it's maybe hard for you to get Pluvicto until you do some chemotherapy.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Well, I would think it would be, actually, that's a good point. I think it would be impossible until I have, because that was the protocol. I think that's the criteria. I don't know what Medicare's criterion are, but it probably includes having chemo.
Well, the Medicare criteria include having chemo first. You are not going to be able to sidestep it again.
Right.
What is your current PSA, Al?
19.
Okay.
So, are you experiencing back pain?
No. It's only in my lymph nodes, and no, I'm not experiencing any pain whatsoever. The side effects of the Pluvicto and the Provenge are pretty much gone. I'm feeling really good right now. And I'm going to Alaska in a couple of weeks. We're going to go do some hiking and stuff in Alaska. So getting ready to do that.
Awesome. You know, I've said this before, but you've got to get some chemotherapy out the way. Jim Barnes, you are still with us. We had a very good discussion with Jim last week. I don't know if you listened to it on the recording, but you should do, about how much chemo is really necessary. We don't know. Jim, do you have anything to add on anything you've learned in the past week about how much chemo is absolutely necessary to qualify for Pluvicto?
Dr. Appleman is, he's pretty much said I got to get a couple treatments. He said I can have as little as one whenever I feel like the side effects are too much to bear. I can move on to Pluvicto and give that a shot and see if that works. Because I understand it only works for a percentage of the people. But, I actually talking to Ken Anderson the other night, I didn't realize, I thought once I stopped doxytaxel and then went to Pluvicto, I wouldn't be able to go back to docetaxel. But I guess I can. Would you concur with that? Would anybody concur with that? I can go back to docetaxel if Pluvicto doesn't work?
I don't think there's a reason not. Ken, is there any reason that you see why not? I mean, we're not docs, but I mean, I think that the sequencing is the art, it's how they want to move you. But the point, I think, for Al Latimer is how much chemo do I have to do? Do I have to do 6 sessions of docetaxel, or can I get away with, the Jim Barnes approach where I'll just do it until I don't want to do it anymore? And if that's 1 session, I've done chemo and I'm ready to do Pluvicto. The problem is we don't really know. Anybody comment on that? Any comments on that from anyone?
It's not my prescription. It's Dr. Appleman's, but that's my only comment. So it's not my approach.
Right. Ken, did you want to say something? Okay. Well, Al, again, I think you've got to figure somehow or other getting that getting that chemotherapy, whether it's docetaxel or cabazitaxel or whatever, under your belt, or cabazitaxel and carboplatin, because you have a BRCA mutation. You got to get it under your belt.
Yeah, and I talked to Belusic about it. He's not in any particular hurry to do it, so I don't know. I realize it's in my future. I'm not. I'm kind of waiting for them to tell me when I should pull the trigger, in which order I should do it.
Okay. Well, that's your discussion. That's the discussion with Belusic. And if Belusic figures he can get you Pluvicto without doing more chemo, we would love to hear that on this in this forum.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. One other quick comment on Pluvicto. I flew on an airplane the day after I had one of my doses, and I got through the domestic TSA no problem. I wonder if the international is much more sensitive. If you were still lighting it up, Ken, after 3 weeks.
I think you're correct. I think I flew from Phoenix to the Northwest, no problem, 2 days after I got around. So it has nothing to do, domestically, no problem, because I don't think we check. But if you try to cross the border, at least in the car, I don't know about flying internationally.
Yeah, I didn't have any trouble returning internationally a few weeks after my Pluvicto.
Yeah, I think they're worried about people carrying a whole buttload of something that might blow up across the border. So I don't think flying internationally you'll have a problem, but if you drive the border, maybe.
Yeah, it's a wonderful image of buttload.
Guys, we've talked about this one. We can't go back to this one, but let's move on if there's nothing else. We've still got a bunch of guys to get around. We're moving along, but we still got a bunch to get around. David Moslin.
Okay, mic's on now. So I've been on drug help, been off ADT since October, and I'm still getting hot flashes. When will they end? I am so tired of hot flashes.
You're on darolutamide, but no, right. So you're on darolutamide, but you're not. So the darolutamide does contribute because it's stopping the testosterone from getting to some of the adrenals. I mean, the adrenals have testosterone receptors, and they're being blocked by the darolutamide. So just because you're not getting an LHRH doesn't mean that the hot flashes will stop. Do you have an ember? You do, don't you? Yeah. And it ain't doing its job? Is it
No,
the new one?
It absolutely does the job. I'm just like, I'm done with hot flashes. Love to get off of them, but I guess I really didn't connect those dots. So
Len,
get used to it.
But you never had a problem with hot flashes ever.
Not a bad problem, of course. I had them, but I stopped Lupron in May of 2020, and so I was on darolutamide monotherapy for close to 2 years, and I did occasionally get hot flashes because even though your serum testosterone levels might be high or in the normal range, they're still not getting to the receptors.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're not on drug holiday.
Thank you. All right. I'll live with it, boys. I'm happy. My PSA is still undetectable, and I'm good.
David, you're not one of the. You don't have issue with needles, do you?
No.
I would strongly suggest you try some acupuncture. It's worked for a lot of guys. The problem is you have to keep doing it. So if it works, you've got to go back 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, depending on the cycle. A lot of guys have said, we've got benefit from it. And the integrative medical clinics at places like Northwestern and UCSF and elsewhere, they will give you acupuncture in their centers. Now, a good acupuncturist is going to know the points for hot flashes.
Yeah,
and
I actually know an old Chinese lady who was great when I saw her a few years ago. I might reach out to her.
Try it.
She was a real deal.
Try it. Jeff Marchi, any other suggestions? You're Mr. Hot Flash.
Just drink ice water, get a fan, use a fan. Drinking ice water really helps a lot if you don't have any, but you're using an Ember Wave, right?
Yes.
And doesn't it stop them?
Oh, it definitely stops them, but I just at nighttime is when I struggle.
Oh, you have to put the all-night mode on?
During the day, I can hit the button and they're gone.
But all-night mode, you don't use that?
I use the all-night mode, but I still get hot flashes.
Okay, I don't. Well,
yeah.
I've found, the truth is, with one device, I had the same problem. I wear two now because during the test they gave us a free one. So I wear two, and I found that with two, not only does it slow down the number of hot flashes, but the intensity of the hot flashes goes way down. I've got to hit both of them right away, but it cut for 3 months. I had between 0 and 1 hot flash a day, and I used to have at least 8 or 10 a day. And then I started only wearing one, and they came back. And I don't want to take any more time, but just some thoughts. A second one might.
Got it. Thanks, gents. Appreciate it.
And if anybody needs a second one, we've got a discount code now. It's AnCan 50, but I can't remember. You've got to, it's capital sensitive. So you just write me if you want it. And I can't look it up right now, but we do have a discount code to save $50 if anybody wants it. All right, I've got to keep moving here because we're almost at the witching hour and we still got a bunch of people. So we'll go on over. I'll stay as long as it takes. We'll go to Alan and then we're going to go to Les and then we're going to go. We've still got a few people. So let's start with Alan. Alan, you talked to us before, so we don't need to recap that part.
Yeah, so I think right now my biggest question is that questions to ask the medical oncologist. That's who I'm going to, she's scheduled an hour. And so she's probably going to talk to me about hormone therapy. So any questions to ask her? And the other piece is Dr. Wong told me about a trial. It's the short name for it is Indicate at Fox Chase. And so if anybody can give me any input on that, it would be much appreciated. Just one other thing, Dr. Wong was real clear. You've got an aggressive cancer here, Alan. Don't be thinking it's anything but an aggressive cancer. And so we need to really go after it. And radiation and hormone therapy. And she sold me on it. So that's the question is, what about this trial? Is that maybe
what is the trial?
The trial is let's say oh, come on, I had it right here. So it's using a drug. She went through all this, gave me a lot of research that I haven't looked up yet, but she said it's a drug that they use with people with more severe prostate cancer. Zytiga. My wife's here helping me out. It's using Zytiga, which was used for more severe prostate. Now and resulted in more longer longevity. And now they're saying, wait a minute, can we use it with people who have a lower PSA? My PSA now is 0.2, but surely going up, by the month. The last month it went up, 0.
So let's cut to the chase here. The so-called trial would be LHRH like Lupron plus Zytiga plus radiation. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So with recurrence, the doctors can prescribe Zytiga and LHRH anyway. So you don't need to be in a trial to get the Zytiga. I think that who is the medical oncologist you're meeting with? Is it Narayan? Did you say?
No, it's Arnia. Arnia, I think is her name.
Okay. Where is this?
At Fox Chase. It's all there at Fox Chase.
So here's what I'm going to tell you to do right now. When's this meeting?
It is on the 11th.
Cancel the meeting and make a meeting with Dr. Gainesman.
Gainesman. All right.
Geynisman.
All right. Did you get that?
Geynisman. Joe Gallo, you still with us?
I sure am, Dr. Dan.
You want to do a little promo?
I don't know what you have to promo him for. He's right on top of all things. He's a straight shooter, and he and Dr. E have had conversations, and they seem to sync out. And in my case, I had the Zytiga or the abiraterone with the relagolix, the Orgovyx.
Right. And that was not with a trial. So you don't need, I mean, that's what Joe's basically getting right now. And I would recommend that you meet with Dan Gainesman because he's good. And he's our go-to guy at Fox Chase. And ask him, do you think I need a ADT plus the Zytiga? What's your opinion?
All right.
And when
Okay,
will
well,
you
you're
intervene?
all right. You're supporting my wife's position. I'm here like, oh no, I've got to support science. Science has to do the research. Men have to be involved in the research.
Oh shit. Whoops.
And he does interact with Dr. Wong as well.
All right,
That was
good. No,
that was
and I know that I have to learn to put myself first, and so I'm game. I'm going to follow up. Thank you very much. I'm going to take action on that. Thank you.
Okay.
You can move on. Right? That's enough. Yep.
Okay, we will. Anybody else have anything they want to say to Alan before we move on? Okay, Les, what's on your mind? Les is for Dr. Jack's benefit, Les is our Dr. Kwan patient.
Oh, he's just coming back. Here he comes.
He's just coming back. Okay, Les, go for it, man.
Okay, the last report I had reported with the scans, the C11 choline PET scan, the PSMA scan, and for the doubters, they did a biopsy and they confirmed that there was high concentration of cancer in the left testicle. When I left Mayo Clinic, at the time they had figured on doing surgery, and apparently they had discussed after the fact that they decided that surgery was not a good idea because they felt that that they wouldn't get all of it with the surgery because it was so widespread. So they had decided that it would be best to do radiation. So I did not have an opportunity to discuss it at that time. And I had questioned it after the fact to get some more information. Well, finally, the radiation oncologist called, and I didn't get a warm, fuzzy feeling. You know, when I've had radiation about 3 times before, and they've always had some kind of a fixture to get you positions. They have all your body parts so they know where they can find them. Well, one of my questions was, okay, how do you fixture a scrotum and penis to keep things out of the way? Well, they didn't know either. Said, we've never done this before. We've got 6 people working on it, trying to figure out how we're going to do this. I don't like being a guinea pig. I had questioned if well, you know, how about some of the other alternatives, or what are the alternatives? Whether it's chemo or a second line antigen, or I even asked about when they said that you can't get it with surgery, just removing one testicle. How about removing the entire scrotum? I don't like the psychological thought of that either, but he was talking about, well, you're bound to have some radiation burn to the scrotum and radiation burn to the penis, and none of those things sounded appealing to me. Any thoughts on any other possible direction?
You know, my first thought is, I think you've got to get a second opinion here as quick as you can from another institution.
What about brachytherapy?
You know, I was thinking about something similar to that, Herb, but I can't see how they could inject maybe, but could they inject a seed into the testicle? I don't think so.
Why
I
not?
don't know. Oh my God.
I wonder if it would be worth talking to a doc that has done a lot of testicular cancer. I imagine, I don't know much about it, but I imagine they use radiation for that. So maybe they have ideas about how to keep the penis and whatever other parts you want kept safe from the radiation.
Well, I'm sure they've dealt with testicular cancer at Mayo Clinic, so I would think that they would have conferred with such people.
Les, I just think, I think you've got to go to somewhere like Minneapolis or Chicago and get a second opinion from one of the teams there.
Okay,
You
can
know,
I
either,
get with you separately and get some specifics on that? Because I was
well,
thinking about the
we
same
can
thing.
give it to you now. We'll put it in and send me a note and I'll send it to you. But I mean, I would say either get with Dr. Shmulewitz in Chicago or to get with Dr. Antanarakis in
Well,
Minneapolis.
what about Mac Roach?
Well, yeah, but he's not going to go to San Francisco.
But Mac Mac is really good at understanding what needs to be done with radiation.
Well, he is, but I think there's got to be a team here. And, you know, it's possible that Antanarakis, you could go to Antanarakis and you could also say to him, do you think ask Chuck if he could get Dr. Roach's opinion from a radiation standpoint, and you could do it that way. I mean, Chuck Ryan is still at Masonic, and Chuck can pick up the telephone, but he's not taking new patients. But Chuck could pick up the telephone and ask Mac to look at this for you. So if you went to Antanarakis, you could backdoor it in, and if you can't get to him, I'm happy to write to Mac. But, you know, this is not just a radiation oncology issue. It's bigger than that.
Okay.
So I would,
Okay.
I mean, I would say Antanarakis or Shmulewitz. Anybody else got any ideas or suggestions? Les lives in Northwest Illinois. How far is it from you to Minneapolis, Les?
About 7+ hour drive.
And to Chicago?
3.5.
I think I'd probably go to Shmulewitz. I'd probably or Stadler, whoever you can get in to see first.
Okay.
Go to Shmulewitz or Stadler and ask them. David, do you want to say? Well, I mean, what are your thoughts? We got guys here with Shmulewitz, with Stadler, and with Patniak.
Do they physically need to see less?
That was
Can't we
just what
do
I was
this?
going to ask.
Can't-
If anybody does things remotely, any of those gentlemen.
Well, we do know for sure that with Antanarakis, he requires you to go there the first time, and then he's happy to work telemed. I think that you might get away with a telemed appointment with University of Chicago, whoever you choose to see, because you're in the same state.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. I had remote contact with Alicia Morgans when she was in Chicago.
At Northwestern. So it may be. I mean, why don't you call up and see if you can get a quick appointment with Shmulewitz? But you're going to have to advocate, and if you cannot, call us, and one of our Shmulewitz guys will reach out to him, David, or we've got a couple of other people, and they'll reach out for him on your behalf.
Okay. All right. Good enough.
Okay. David Muslin, would you be kind enough in the chat window to put Russell Shmulewitz's name and maybe the link to him if you have it?
Yep, I sure do. It'll be there in a minute.
Thanks. Okay, Les?
Thanks. Yes.
And call me up, and then you need to advocate for yourself. David, Shmulowitz knows about AnCan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So tell him you're an AnCan guy, that we're sending you over to him. And then if we run into any blocks, one of our guys will send a note to him and say, please, could you see if you can help let this guy out?
Okay. Like you said, there is a little urgency. I'm going back up there in 1 week. So I'll be seeing them in a week from now. So I'm trying to get things going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we can get you in anywhere in a week,
Yeah,
but
well,
that doesn't mean you're going up there in a week, but they're not going to do anything to you until you give them the high sign, right?
right, right. But I'd like to know a little bit more first if I can. But thank you. I will pursue that. I'll check the chat box.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Herb, I'm sorry I've left you so late, but I knew you'd be here, so you go next, and then
move on. I'll do next week.
So I've got Joel Blanchette. Are you still with us, General? Yes.
Yes, I am. And I just put something in the text, which is the results of my CDX test from Foundation Medicine that I received this morning and an email from my doctor. I just wanted to know, I couldn't discern anything from it, but there was 17-page report. This is part of the first page summary. And so I figured maybe you guys could help me decipher this.
So what I see right away is that you have TP53. Welcome to thank God it's not my club, but welcome to the club. There are a bunch of guys on here with TP53, including Herb. Herb, I don't know that variant of TP53, if it's a common variant or not.
That's what I'm looking at the moment.
MUTYH, I don't know anything about.
Yes.
TRT, I don't know anything about. Of course, this is why we have a Brains Trust. So, Brains Trust, do you have any feedback for Joel on his Foundation Medicine?
Well, Foundation Medicine usually tells you if any of the mutations are actionable. I don't recognize any here that are. Do you, Herb?
Well, MUTYH is, I think, a DNA repair gene, but I might be wrong, which means there might be some option for sort of synthetic lethality. Right, mutate provides instructions for, it's involved in DNA repair. So it may be that a PARP inhibitor could synergize, might do something, but I don't know. I mean, this is, for me to add on the spur of the moment, I can't. I'd have to,
right.
Joel, I looked at somebody else's report last week, and if you send me the report, I can look it over more carefully. And I'm happy
Okay.
to do that.
I have your email address. I'll send it to you directly.
Right. Yeah, it's herb at ancan.org, Joel.
Right, thank you.
Herb at ancan.org. Now, there's a couple of things. Dr. A is the expert.
Yes.
So when are you meeting with Dr. A on this report?
He hasn't received this yet because I just received it this morning. He's going to receive it within the next week or so. And so I'm meeting with my radiation oncologist first after another PSA test in a few days. So then Dr. A will tell me what interpret this and tell me what to do.
Okay, well, I would recommend you upload this to your Masonic, through your Masonic portal tonight.
Okay.
There's no reason not to do that. So upload it to the Masonic portal tonight. Was it your radiation oncologist that ordered it?
Yeah, well, it was ordered through Dr. A, told the radiation oncologist to do it because he's not licensed in Virginia. And so,
Okay. So
but the
why
yeah,
don't you just upload this right away so he can see it, and then you want to get together with him and see what he says. Now, there's a few interesting things going on around TP53, but nothing certain. We talked about that last week. So
right.
listen to what we said about TP53. Absolutely nothing firm, but there's some leads, if you like, on TP53 that people are following. And I would think that if anybody knows about those TP53 leads, it's going to be Dr. Antonucci.
Yes.
And so you'll see, and please come back to us with whatever he's saying. And beyond that, that's the other thing I want to say to you is that even if it's in the pathways, even if it's a sort of a DDR type of tumor of mutation, and what we found was that the PARP inhibitors really didn't help any unless it was BRCA1, BRCA2, or ATM. So even if you had other stuff, CDK and other things in the line, there was no point, it just didn't help. So, on paper, it might say it should do it, but when they actually tested it, it was BRCA1, BRCA2, and possibly ATM.
Got it.
So, but let's see what this is exactly why you still have Dr. Antonucci on your team.
Right. No, he's the expert at this type of stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's hear what he has to say.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think I've gotten everybody. Steve Saft left. Herbie, you sure you don't want to go?
Yeah, no, I don't need to go. It's okay. What about Bob?
Oh,
Carlos.
Bob. Oh my gosh, Bob. So sorry, Bob. You
No.
go. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
No problem. I mean, compared to you guys, I'm a newbie, not just to this forum, but I'm 2.5 months into my, from diagnosis. I just wanted just a couple things. I wanted to thank Herb for looking at my Claris report and helping me figure out things a little better. I had a genetic counseling session today from the guy from Penn, and he only talked about genetics, not genomics. So he didn't really help very much, but
Really? He didn't
yeah,
talk about the tumor genetics?
no, he was strictly germline genetics. So I'm going to have to take this up with my oncologist. But I did preliminary, and she said, we got to get through chemo first.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I did want to say is my first round of chemo, I had nothing, no bone marrow, drugs, and I hit like 0.8 white blood cells and 0.1 with neutrophils. So I'm a week out, and today my white blood cells are 6, my neutrophils are 3. So the Xiextenzo, which is what the insurance approved instead of Neulasta, obviously worked. So that's pretty much it.
When's your next chemo?
2 weeks.
Okay.
And then I got to just, maybe people know, is there any, I'm supposed to be on a 3-week. Is there any harm in here and there, one time pushing it back a week versus trying to stay on a 3-week pretty tight schedule?
I mean, I think if you had a good reason why you wanted to push it back, they would probably say It's not going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's more about having some construction done in the house that we contracted back in March, and it's like if we don't have it done now, well, in a few weeks, it's going to be like another 6 months. So
Well,
I
one thing you've got to take into account, Bob, is that you're probably going to feel great right around the time that you get the chemo.
right, I
So,
know.
from right before when they give you the dexamethasone for 2 or 3 days afterwards, or 2 days afterwards, you could be flying. So, if you push it back, then you've got to be careful that you don't push it back to a time when you're feeling crummy.
You're talking about, right, the construction work.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe it just makes sense to just get through it and move on, and maybe it's just we don't want to. The first day I would have the chemo would be the first day they're starting the project, so
And how
we
long will the project last?
it's only a week. We're having our cabinets in our kitchen redone.
Bob, you'll feel crappy if on the 5th day, right? What day of the week do you get your chemo?
Well, it's going to normally Monday, but it'll be Tuesday because it's the day after Labor Day.
Right. So you'll feel crappy on Friday and Saturday, and
Right.
they won't be working on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll just get somebody else to take me instead of my wife so she can be around when they get this thing started up. Maybe that's my best bet. So, I feel like I don't know if I actually belong in this group only because, I'm just starting out and you guys are talking about things that hopefully I'll be dealing with years from now, but,
Well, not necessarily, Doc. I mean, look, we started with Dr. Jack, and people are at all stages here.
yeah,
And
no, I know.
if you've got recurrent, you belong in this group. If you
Oh,
want
no,
to
no,
talk to people about how
I'm
to
de novo.
you want to talk to people about how to deal with the side effects of chemotherapy, you've got to be in this group.
Yeah, no, I'm not recurrent. I'm de novo metastatic.
Well,
Okay,
so
but even
join
de
the
novo
club.
makes a difference.
I'm de novo metastatic. John Antonucci was de novo metastatic.
Okay.
You belong.
Jim
Okay.
Marshall?
Go
Okay.
ahead, Jim
Thanks.
Marshall.
Oh, yes, I am too. Okay, I am the same as you, except only 5 years later. Still trucking along.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to
We,
thread the needle
yeah,
like
Bob,
everyone is.
we don't have another group that you could go to.
Right. No, I know that. So, okay.
Right. So if you're doing chemotherapy, this is the group you need to be in. Let me just, since he's still with us, let us speak to the king of chemotherapy. Can you put your mic on for a moment, Ken? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
here.
do you want to share with Dr. Bob how many sessions of docetaxel you've done? And do you have any words of advice from him when he's just done one right now?
2.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the number that I've done is so important. I mean, the fact that you've done one, you want to like stretch
2.
it maybe a week or 2 rounds. I would say, yeah, ask your doctor and confirm that he's okay with it, but he should be. Like Herb said, the dosage is based on your weight.
Right
How
now.
much chemotherapy you get is based on your weight. So don't you think they could extend it, a week? I mean, if a week's what you're asking for in regards to your kitchen remodel, take the week.
Okay. Yeah.
Won't
Okay.
matter.
Right. Yeah. I've had 2 doses so far, and so far hasn't been too bad. I know it keeps getting worse, but
It does, but I mean, even those, the worst part is neuropathy. I mean, maybe you'll get it in your feet, maybe you won't, and some people get it and it goes away. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about that. You're not worried about your hair. So,
Yeah, well,
no, it will definitely fall out on chemo.
oh yeah,
So,
yeah. It started falling out after day 12 of the first round. So my wife
yeah,
shaved my head.
that's the best way. Just like it's okay.
Oh yeah,
It
I'm
will
not
come
worried about
back.
that. Oh yeah, I'm
You
not
know,
worried
my
about that.
good.
Yeah, it's really the neuropathy that is probably the most concerning. And so far, after two, I haven't had anything. So hopefully that'll trend will continue.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Hmm.
So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Okay, I have a question for Herb. That Caris report, Herb, for Bob. Oh,
Yes,
Bob left. Were there no mutations on there?
there were a bunch of mutations. What I'm surprised at was that there was no mention of TP53 at all in the Caris report. Like they didn't find a mutation, or they did. I was just surprised that it didn't cover that at all. It wasn't listed as if they looked at it. But yes, they identified several mutations in genes. It's just that Bob had not. He was a little bit confused about genomics versus genetics. So
Okay. And was there anything
nothing
actionable?
actionable. No,
Nothing actionable.
nothing
Any,
really. No.
anything interesting?
I don't remember the details right now, Rick, so I have to go
Okay.
back and look at it.
Okay. Okay. Well, Bob, maybe
Yeah,
next week you can share with us the mutations that Herb helped you uncover on the Caris report.
yeah. It was more about just understanding the layout and just what they were doing. I mean, the only thing that's actionable is having a mismatch repair deficiency and
Yeah.
high MSI.
MSI.
Which is good. Which is
Right. No,
good.
I understand that.
And they probably was this blood or tissue?
This was from the biopsy sample.
So they probably can't even give you it. They can't give you a tumor burden from that. They need blood for the tumor burden.
Right. Right.
But if your tumor burden is fairly high, then it becomes really interesting because you definitely become a candidate for some good options.
Yeah, I mean, I think my tumor burden is, considered high only because of my samples. 9 out of 12 were positive, and they're all 70%, 80%, 90%. I don't know if that quite counts, but
Not really, because the tumor burden is going to be really determined by how much is being shed into the bloodstream
gotcha.
and the level of circulating tumor cells that they see over a certain unit. I forget what the unit is, but it's
Right.
so many cells per given unit, and that's how they do it.
Okay.
All
And
right, guys, did I miss anybody who is still on this call?
yeah,
George always does that to me. He always waves goodbye, and I think, oh my God, I miss George.
just real quick, with the tumor burden, that's a liquid biopsy.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Jack, you get a medal for sitting through 2.5 hours. Good
Right.
man.
Jimmy, you turned on your mic.
Yeah, sure I did. Hey, Rick, I got a question for you.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Extremely
Rick.
good. You guys are sensational. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Jack. Jack, I hope we go back to that little fish shack. I've got to talk to Muslim. He's got to get me back down. He's got to get me back down to Boca so we can go to that fish shack and get one of those fish again, that big one that I shared.
And
right?
David for putting.
No name harbor is what he's talking about. Go ahead, guys.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, first of all, David, you got to move down to Antarctica for a while for your hot flashes from Florida. That might take care of the problem. But what I was going to say is, Rick, you get one guess as who's meeting me at the gym tomorrow.
I know. He already
know?
he already told me. He's already been complaining and making excuses, Jimmy. He's been making excuses already, Jimmy.
Chris hasn't showed up for his first time yet. What could the
Yeah,
problem be?
what did you expect? What did you expect? That he would wait until he'd seen you to make
I will.
excuses? No, he's
I will
already
know.
making it.
I'll be
Go
very.
ahead,
I'll be
Richard.
very kind to him. I'll be very kind to him. As
Okay.
I put my foot in his ass, it will be nice
Right.
and gentle.
Hey, one more thing. Oh shoot. About the hot flashes. You've got to use that device every single time you get it. And if they don't stop, I'd get a Depo-Provera shot. They stopped my hot flashes almost completely until I went on Zytiga. And it lasts 3 months. You could try it. And that could probably give you relief at night as well. They'd stopped mine almost completely. So the Zytiga drove them back up. And I don't use it at all anymore because using 2 devices has gotten me to the point I don't need it.
I've got one question. What is the name of the device?
The Ember Wave, EMBR Wave.
Ember Labs, EMBRLABS.com.
Okay, and we have and just write to me, Richard, and I'll give you the it's either AnCan 50 with all caps. If that doesn't work, it's capital A, small n, capital C, AN 50. But I can't remember offhand. I'll try and remember to send it to you.
Okay.
Does that work in addition to the discount they give you when you first go to that website? Do you know?
I think it does. I think it does.
Because they give you 50 if you say it right away. Okay.
For those of you who are wondering who Jimmy is going to train tomorrow, because you're wondering what the hell we're talking about, it's the professor. The professor is going to meet Jimmy at the gym.
So he's going to beat me up.
We'll give you an update next week from the hospital bed.
Right. I've got my Motrin ready.
We want video. We just happened to live close together.
Okay. All right,
All right.
guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Stop the recording.
You don't have to. It'll stop when I close the meeting.
Okay, fine.
Good night.
All right.